Wah! Abracadabra. Welcome back in, everybody, to another One Piece poll video. Dude, I have no idea what the hell I'm doing with these intros anymore. Yeah, we're here for another poll video. Imu has been revealed. They're here in Elbaf. They have the Devil's Fruit, one of the 20 kings, king of the world, Saint Nerona, Imu. Now that he has been revealed, it's time to ask the hard-hitting questions. The first one being, how difficult will dealing with Elbaf be for Imu? I love polls, brother. We got 4 of them that we're tackling today, and I'm going to try to speed run through all of these, so we're not going to be here all day. But yeah, I love polls, man, because I always say this. I am just one guy. I'm just a guy with a microphone and a camera, and that's pretty much it. There's nothing that really separates any of us. So because of that, I love seeing outside opinions. I love reading through comments, and I love holding polls because that really shows you how everybody, or at least the majority of people, feel about the upcoming chapters and theories. So as far as how difficult will dealing with Elbaf be for Imu, I put 4 options on the board. The first one is that Imu is going to go extreme diff here. Imu barely wins. They're going to be huffing and puffing, almost dead. 8% voted for that right there. The next option says that this will be a high diff scenario where Imu does struggle a good bit. 16% voted for that. Mid diff is that Imu tries moderately. They're not exactly struggling, but they're not exactly just, doing this with their eyes closed. And then last but not least, we have low diff, where Imu is not trying at all. Like I said, they can do it with their eyes closed. They can do it with a hand tied behind their back with one finger. That is essentially low diff. I kind of put no diff here as well, like low diff, no diff. I kind of consider that almost the same thing, but alas, I only have 4 options to play with here on YouTube. As far as where I fall with all of this, I would love it if Imu low diffs everybody. I think, he could be that overwhelming force. I do just throw it back to like Kizaru at Sabaody or even Kaido at the beginning of Wano. I do think that Imu will destroy everybody. And I think that is necessary because if we want to grow, if we want to get more powerful, getting our asses kicked in Shonen is usually a requirement. Not always, but usually, right? Usually. So I do like that a lot of people are falling towards mid-diff, and it kind of makes sense, given who he's fighting. At the end of the day, while Luffy hasn't mastered his fruit, he still is the sun god. And then, of course, he's accompanied by Loki, Ragnar, all of his crew, and the giants of Elbaf. Imu's side right now isn't looking too good. Gonko is still frozen in ice. Killing him is hanging from a tree. And then people are playing with Saint Summers' heart and putting him together like magnet pieces. Yeah, right now, Imu doesn't exactly have the boys by his side, while the Straw Hats do. So saying that Imu goes mid-diff, I'm not mad at that idea, right? The only one I wouldn't want, honestly, is extreme diff. Dude, if Imu goes extreme diff here, I think that'd be kind of crazy, man. At that point, it's like, well, we were close to beating Imu. We just had to give him that final push. And I don't know if we want that, man. I don't know if we want that. So, going into the comment section, let's just see what people are saying about this. This says, I want Imu to be moving like Madara versus the Shinobi Alliance. One of the best anime fight sequences out there, mind you. I think the Madara versus Shinobi Alliance segment, that little clip where he's rolling around, punching people, taking swords, hiding in the dirt, coming up like this. It's beautiful. It is a grand sequence, and I would like it if that is what Imu's doing here. With all the giants, with the Straw Hats, that would be Aura Farming 101. Imu is literally the center of the entire story along with Joy Boy. He's connected to the Void Century, Poneglyphs, and the One Piece we've been building to for decades. He better mop the floor with the Straw Hats, or this will be the most anticlimactic villain in history. I agree. And the thing is that some people are saying, oh, Blackbeard's the final villain, yada, yada. And that's fine. I think there's nothing wrong with Blackbeard being Luffy's final fight. But just because you see one character as the final fight over the other, that doesn't mean that Imu or the predecessor has to be lackluster. No. Both can be true. Imu and Blackbeard can both be absurdly powerful. So yes, I want Imu to be that guy. I believe the final war will be centered around Imu. So if he were lackluster in terms of power, that would be very, very, very disappointing. This says, I think he will be dominant throughout every part, but will have to fully due to him bleeding when outside the Holy Land. Maybe Luffy and Loki will give him a slight challenge, but I think the Straw Hats will 100% lose this one and only manage to get out alive due to Imu not being able to be outside for long. And yeah, I think this would be really good for the Straw Hats too. Like, when was the last time that we had to go through a time limit? Like, oh, we have to survive 5 minutes in the ring with Imu. That would be a very unique scenario, and I would enjoy that. Like, maybe they all realize that Imu cannot stay here for long, and they're like, oh, guys, he's bleeding out. Like, come on, just hold on one more second. That'd be nice. That would be a weird and cool switch up. He has to absolutely annihilate them. It would be a letdown if they stood a chance. Arouge still hasn't descended from the heaven realm. Dude, what the hell is going on up there? The funny thing is that all of the giants in Elbaf should know what is in the heaven realm. So if there was a big fighter up there, hopefully the giants mention him soon, or even Imu. If there's like a void century threat in the heaven realm, Imu should know about that as well. Ooh, I don't know. Actually, it took Imu a while to realize that Nidhogg was in Elbaf, so maybe not, but either way. Well, maybe Biblo. If Biblo is a Joy Boy Nakama, maybe Biblo shows up and pushes Imu over the board, gets them to bleed a little bit more, and then Imu's like, okay, between Biblo and my bleed out process, I gotta dip. Biblo might be a sleeper hit here in Elbaf, truly. Knowing how Oda is such a fan of other typical shonen stories, and he loves to take inspiration, I think it's legitimately possible he gives Imu some major flexes and low diffs the island. Yeah, I could definitely see Oda doing that. Like you said, Oda is friends with pretty much everybody at Shonen Jump, so him taking inspiration or just, falling in line with the whole, here's a big bad villain, yes, they're cooking everybody. That makes sense. I really hope Imu absolutely destroys the Straw Hats. Yeah, okay. It looks like everybody is more or less on the same boat. Like, we want Imu to be this dominating force so that the Straw Hats have to grow and so that we do have something to work towards, right? When we beat Imu, we want it to feel like it was well earned and that it was a struggle. Something that only Luffy and his friends are able to do. That would be nice. We'll go ahead and read a couple more and then we'll move on to the next poll. This says Imu is definitely going to cook here. I was doubting his strength for a second, but now it's looking like he might start to turn things around. What's so funny? This comment right here, I agree with you. I think a lot of people agree with you, but we're all saying that just because of his design. If he didn't look like Veldora, if he didn't look like a member of Kaguya's family or, who's another great character that he looks like? Acnologia, right? If he didn't have that presence, that design, I feel like people would be like, whatever. If Imu showed up and he stayed as that black blob with the tall crown, I feel like people wouldn't really care. Like, the design matters. If Imu was just this, literally just this, I feel like the poll would shift slightly up. Not by a lot, but I think it would shift. It would be noticeable. This says, Sogeking returns Imu-sama to home. I can't see Imu struggling whatsoever. Too good of a too good of a design, man. Since he's closest to Zoro and Chopper, Zoro will say he's the king of hell. This would be embarrassing. No, don't say this, Zoro. Do not say you're the king of hell, man. Don't say this in front of a demon. While Imu one-taps him, and in turn, Chopper will be taken captive by Imu. Chopper is interesting. If Chopper is something special, Imu should know about it. Imu, the progenitor of devil fruits, the devil's fruit user, he should know what the hell is going on with Chopper. Whether it's the human fruit awakening, whether it's the forest god or etc., Imu should know. Let's just hope that Imu had a couple of drinks before coming to Elbaf so that he ends up as a chatty Cathy. Zoro fighting Imu, I think this would be a lot of fun. I don't think Zoro would really last. I think I could see the one-tap scenario happening. I just really hope he doesn't drop the King of Hell line. I don't know. It's something that is really cool when he's by himself declaring he'll be the King of Hell, but saying it to somebody and having them hear that, I don't know, man. That's like me saying, oh, I'm sorry, the YouTuber. No, don't say that, man. That's embarrassing. That's so embarrassing. Oh, hey, Chopper, you're the forest god? Well, I'm God Usopp. I don't know. Epithets are meant to be heard by other people through newspapers. It's not meant for you to like spout left and right like you're a Pokemon. Like, I feel like that'd be a little bit too much. What's another one? Oh, Law, the surgeon of death. Law's over here operating on somebody. A doctor walks in. Who are you? Me? I'm the surgeon of death. No. Do not say the epithet. Do not say the epithet. Imu might have some timer to fight outside the Holy Land, considering this might be high diff fighting Luffy, Loki, Ragnar, and against time too. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, we have to remember that Luffy, Loki, and Ragnar, they're not at full strength. Granted, you know, Luffy hasn't really taken damage, but he is exhausted and winded from fighting Gunkmu, right? He went into old man form. He was still in old man form last chapter, and he's eating food. Loki, yes, the dragon form seemed to wind him, right? He's like, oh man, I was too big for too long. He was huffing and puffing. But before that, Loki got stabbed like 3 times by Shamrock Cerberus blade. You know, Gonko is over here kicking him in the chin, hitting him in the chest. Loki is not really in good shape right now. So it could be high diff on a regular occasion, but because Luffy and Loki are winded, I'm not too sure. I mean, hell, even most of the Straw Hats, while they're not like showing big signs of exhaustion, they were working up until this point. So, you know, Imu is stepping in here while pretty much Elbaf is at like 70% HP or capacity. I think that's like a broad general statement, but you guys get what I'm saying. I hope the trying is only because he's coughing up blood. We need to see, okay, everybody wants the Madara moment for One Piece. I don't blame them. You know, I am on the One Piece side of TikTok, etc., but I often see the Madara clip pop up on my For You page. And let me tell you, when I see the Madara clip, I stop. I stop and I watch it almost every single damn time. I would love it if One Piece got a moment like that. And before people are like, oh, you know, Oda's copying Kishimoto. Bro, they're friends. Oda and Kishimoto, they know each other. There's a cover page where Naruto and Luffy are eating ramen together. You know, I think there's nothing wrong if they bask in the glory together as the big three. Which I say big three, but, you know, there was no mention of Bleach here. But hey, even in Bleach, you know, Yu Hawaha, he was kind of making moves in that final arc, man. So now, the next poll, I asked another simple question. But what skin color does Imu have? Of course, there's no real way to tell because this is a black and white manga. You can tell that Oda did shade in Imu, but that could mean a variety of things, right? Dude, look at Saint Summers in the manga. Realistically, could anyone have predicted that Saint Summers' attire is Barney purple across the board? No one. Killingham is a black dragon with yellow hair. I don't know, brother. You know, while it looks like Imu is brown-skinned, he could be red, he could be gray. I've seen people saying that Imu could be blue, could even be green like Shrek. And that is true. Like, we don't know. At bare minimum, we know he's not white. We know that for sure. He's not pale-skinned. But outside of that, the rainbow is on the board. Guys, the rainbow is in the room with us. It's funny. I have been playing around with different colors for Imu. I'm like, okay, which one looks better? You know, brown, red, blue. I feel like brown is best, but red is also right behind it. Blue is third pick for me. Gray would be interesting, but because of the way the horns meld with the color, I feel like gray wouldn't be that amazing. But yeah, I generally fall in line with this. I think brown is number 1, red number 2, blue number 3. But as you can tell, 57% did vote for brown, 36% for red, 3% for gray, and then 4% for other. Of course, like I said, I only can put 4 options on the board. I wish I could list every single color out there, but this is what we got. If you're wondering why red is so popular, it's mainly because Imu is the devil, and typically in shows, cartoons, animes, books, the devil is often red. I mean, this isn't Hellboy, but you get the idea, right? Hellboy, for example, is red. So I think that would be pretty damn awesome. Top comment says, oh no, this is the last way Oda could F up the perfect design. Imagine we get Green Goblin Imu. I think green might be the worst. Yeah, like I said earlier, I think green might be the worst. Yeah, Green Goblin, Shrek, he looked like an imp. No. Anything but green. Anything but green. I would take purple. I would genuinely take purple over green. I like how you included Kid Devil as a reference. And on the brown note, I voted for it because he also has the tattoo on his face going on. Makes me think he has a Lunarian something going on. Yeah, you know, initially people thought that he was part Lunarian because of the tattoo, because of the white hair and the brown skin. And I get it. I feel like he's mainly missing like the iconic wings, which he does have wings, but we don't see it in that last couple of panels, and the fire. But yeah, you know, the devil is very interesting there. This says, I like the idea that he is a Lunarian who lost his wings. Funny, I don't think he lost his wings. While you can't see it in those last two panels, you do see wings when he spawns in Elbaf. Like when he starts transforming, he like bends over and the wings like shoot out of his back. So I don't think he lost his wings like Enel. This is similar to a fallen angel, since Imu is basically just the devil down to the tail and everything. So probably brown. But I wouldn't be mad if he has a hybrid form with red skin to represent the traditional cartoon devil. Oh, you're right. Yeah, because he has like a hybrid form, a Zoan, a base form, etc., he could have multiple skin colors. Yeah. I mean, it's like Luffy, right? You know, when Luffy goes gear 5th, it's all white. Gear 4th, he has a lot of black. You know, we don't have to limit him to one skin color. You know, he could pick and choose, realistically. This says, I want Imu to be pastel purple really badly. I guess I gotta see it. You know, I haven't asked anybody to like draw him up in purple. So maybe, you know, if I see the pastel purple, I'll become a fan of it. As far as green goes, you know, I don't think I'll ever be a fan of the green, but maybe there's a way it could work. I would want brown, but I feel like it'd be similar to the King design. I wouldn't feel like something new and cool for Imu, so I want red low-key. If King never existed, then definitely brown. Yeah, I can see that. That's a really good point. That's a good way to put it. I can see Usopp hitting Imu at the exact time the time limit ends. Everyone will believe that he killed him, a God Usopp moment. This is a really good comment, and this would be true rage baiting. You know, beforehand, it's like, yeah, you know, Usopp did talk that shit to Imu. I'm not too sure if that really affected Imu coming to Elbaf or not. I feel like he's gonna come here either way because of Nidhogg and Nika, but this would 1,000,000% rage bait Imu. I wouldn't even deny this one. This would be a God Usopp moment against the devil. Calling my shot, Zoro's taking Imu down. Red like Robin and Demonio Floor. I like that. Yeah, I mean, hey, they call her Devil's Child. So maybe the red is like the main connection there. That would be dope. That would be dope. It's very likely a hybrid Zoan form. So of course he has to be red skinned. Considering it's the devil fruit, it makes the most sense for it to be red if he's in hybrid form. But in his base, I think he's brown like the Lunarians. I'm okay with red and gray, but I really prefer the idea that he is part Lunarian at least, so he looks like King. That would open a lot of possibilities to his backstory. Yeah, if he was part Lunarian or just straight up Lunarian, that would be crazy. Because that means that he partook in the slaughter of his own people, which I guess would push forward the Enel parallels. Because Enel killed all the Birkins except for his boys, right? He kept his priests, and he said, yo, let's kill everybody else and then go to Skypiea. Let's go to Endless Birth, guys. That would be an insane parallel. And I mean, hey, they're both gods in their own rights. I do think that Enel and Imu do have another parallel with the Mother Flame and the Arc Maxim, right? The Arc Maxim had the Death Pia attack, which destroyed islands. Imu has the Lulusia weapon, which destroys islands and the Mother Flame. I feel like there is something there. Which makes it so hard on a different front. Because there's so many parallels between Imu and Enel, it makes me doubtful that Enel will ever come back into the story. I want to hope that he comes back. I want him to come back. Hell, in the mural, we saw the Arc Maxim in the sky. Oh, and that's supposed to be Uranus. And it's like, man, like, how does Enel fit into the story? I have no clue. Enel feels like such an oddball character. He's on the moon right now, brother. He's on the moon with an electric gold city. He has an army of weird robots with mustaches. How the hell is Oda gonna fit that guy into One Piece? I hope he does, but I have no clue how. It's like the whole Usopp question, right? How is Usopp gonna do something impactful here in Elbaf? I like this idea right here, but outside of this, the only thing I could come up with is maybe insane observation haki, a weird burst of conquerors, or he just stands his ground and gets beaten up. And it's like, man, like, I do wonder, man, like, how is Oda gonna play all this? What is going on in Oda's mind? All right, so last one here. This says Oda is the type of dude to make pastel pink since it's the last saga. Ooh, pink, huh? I wish I put a picture of Imu here just so I could like visualize it better. I didn't want to put a picture of Imu in any of these polls off rip outside of like the blob shadow monster thing because I don't want to spoil anybody off the YouTube homepage. But yeah, I wish I had the visualizer, man. So now on to the next poll. Do the other original 20 kings and queens have powers on the level of Imu, or just around Imu's power level? This is an interesting question. You know, the way Imu was introduced, one of the 20 kings, one of the founders of the world, there's 19 other ones, man. There are 19 others. So the question of whether or not they have Devil Fruit powers as well, or just different powers in general, I think is quite valid. Here are the 3 options on the board. The first one says, yes, they were all very powerful. The second option says that yes, but not all of them. Maybe just a handful of the OGs have powers on the level of Imu, while the last option goes the opposite direction and says that no, only Imu had power. For me, I lean more towards this second option. I do feel like there's a couple of Usops on the crew. There's a couple of people who are not meant to be fighters. So I do err towards this, that a handful of them had very crazy, unique, and devastating abilities, but not all of them. I mean, hell, even when it comes to Queen Lily, right? She had the ability to spread the poneglyphs around the world. Did she do that by picking up the poneglyphs and dropping them down? Is it because she had the paw fruit? Or did she have a different ability entirely? Lily is in contention there. And not just that, but look at this image. Look at this image right here. Do you guys know who that is? This is the original Don Quixote. This is Doflamingo's celestial dragon OG king, founder of the world. And how was he depicted by the Tontatas? First up, it looks like he has the same pink feathered cape that Doflamingo has, which is hilarious. Like, is that just a thing that runs in the Don Quixote family? Doflamingo's like, man, you know, I want to go back to my celestial dragon roots. I need my pink feathered cape like my OG ancestor. But also, outside of that, if you look at him, you see hellfire. You see demonic eyes. You see that crazy ass tongue. Maybe he had devil powers like Imu. Or he's Domi Reversied. You know, I guess that is another pretty obvious one too. Maybe Imu gave him Domi Reversied magic. Or maybe Imu gave him the mark of the abyss and or powers like the Gorosei. You know, maybe he had a yokai demon transformation. That could be pretty damn cool. But yeah, back to the brass tacks, I do think that a lot of them should be fighters. And the reason I say that is because of this image right here. This is from the Vegapunk broadcast. When Vegapunk was talking about how Joy Boy fought against the 20 kings and queens, Joy Boy was powerful. Joy Boy was strong. I hope that his opponents, his final opponents, the ones that beat him, were powerful adversaries as well. And we have to remember, Joy Boy was not alone. He had a crew. He had Emeth. He had Zunisha. He probably had 10 more people behind him, and he had his own kingdom. So it's like, yeah, like I think that the world government, the OG 20 kings and queens, needed more than just civilian fodder to fight Joy Boy and his gang. They need more powerhouses than just Imu. So I do err towards this middle option. Not all of them had crazy insurmountable power like Imu, but I think a handful of them did. Or maybe they're just all below Imu, but they're still relatively strong. It could be the same gap between like Luffy and, you know, Zoro, Sanji, Frankie, and all them, right? Yeah, Imu is above them, but they're not that bad themselves, right? They're just right there. I would like that. And imagine the aura they would carry if they were powerful. We get the Void Century flashback. Boom. Here's the OG Don Quixote. Special ability, manipulation. So I'm trying to think about something different than the String no Mi. Special ability, Puppet Master. I don't know, bro. I don't know. Because back then, like, we don't know what the world was like. It could be that Imu was the only one with the Devil Fruit. It could be. You know, he had the Devil Fruit and everybody else had a different ability entirely. You know, the power system back 900 years ago could be entirely changed. And I think that is what's so fun about the Void Century and the First World. Oda can literally go in his bag and cook up whatever he wants. It's kind of like the Avatar and the Legend of Korra. You go back to the very first Avatar, and guess what? Bending wasn't really a thing. There weren't really water benders or fire benders. No, they were just giant turtles that had magic. Well, magic was the bending, but, you know, still, it was a different power system. I think that is going to be the case for the Void Century and the First World. I think we're going to see a lot of craziness there, and maybe even more devil powers, you know? So now, before hopping into the comment section, just taking a quick glimpse at this, 6% say yes, they were all very powerful, 43% say yes, but not all of them, and 52%, the majority, say no, Imu was the only powerful one. Top comment says, it's the way Imu's intro card said one of the 20 founders of the world government. It makes me think there might be more alive current day, and they must be powerful. I wouldn't say that off rip this makes me believe that they're alive, but I do think the chance of seeing the other 20 is there. Maybe via Void Century, or we do go down the Naruto route and we Edo Tensei the other 18 people back to life. That would be crazy. That would be a hell of a fight. Like, yeah, I mean, right now people are kind of disappointed with the God Knights. Maybe Imu's like, okay, the God Knights aren't really doing it. The Gorosei aren't really doing it. Let me bring back my OG crew. Jonathan, arise! Jeremiah, come! Ganush, come forth! Jin, reveal thyself! Garcia, over here! Ooh, that would be nice. Yeah, the OG 20 coming back for one final war. I'd be down for it, man. I really would. You know, that is like one of the most anime things out there. That feels like anime ass shit. This says, since Skypiea foreshadowed all of One Piece, I think Imu might be the Lunarian that killed all the other Luna. Oh, wow, look. Yeah, going back to this poll, we just talked about that actually. Anel also tore off his wings and inserted a circular ribbon. It looks remarkably similar to Imu. Yep, it does, it does. Granted, Imu still has the wings. It's just not really visible in that last panel. But yeah, I agree. They must have all been Chads, unlike most of today's kings. You know, it's funny. I think back to like Elisabello. And of course, Elisabello does not descend from celestial dragons. But right now, he has the king's punch, right? He winds up for like a solid hour, and then he lands one really devastating punch. I like to imagine if you go back 900 years ago, there was another King Elisabello. But maybe all of his punches, all of his regular punches were king's punches. I think the power levels are going to be absurd in the Void Century. If all 20 founders had that level of strength, there wouldn't be a need for a world government. Not necessarily. I mean, it just goes to show how strong Joy Boy and the Ancient Kingdom were. And, you know, if you're already allied with 20 people against Joy Boy, why not found the world government? I feel like it's all there. It's not like exclusive by any means. It wouldn't surprise me if the original 20 kings were on a similar level of power of Imu, but Imu is definitely the strongest. There's no way all the other 19 OG kings were as strong as Imu. They're probably just normal dudes. Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm just trying to think about who would fight Joy Boy's crew. Because Emmett is no joke. Dude, Emmett was literally smacking the Gorosei until, like, you know, obviously the rocket punch didn't work. Like, Emmett was powerful, man. Emmett was crazy. And then Zunisha, look at the size of Zunisha. Like, yeah, the OG 19 kings, they had kingdoms behind them that helped, but they're fodder, man. You know, a lot of those guys are probably just like civilians, you know, militias and stuff. It's like, nah, like, the kings were putting in the work, I bet. Or at least I'd like to hope, right? I could be wrong. I think it might be like a pirate crew type dynamic, considering Imu is the only one remaining and became the king. He has to be the strongest. Pirate crew dynamic. Yeah, maybe I should have worded this better, because if you believe they're like a pirate crew, like Luffy, for example, I would consider this the whole, like, yes, but not all of them route, right? Where a lot of them are powerful, but of course, Imu being the captain is simply the strongest. This says, what if the man marked by flames is another one of the 20 kings from back then? That would be interesting. They got the immortal youth surgery. I would mainly question why haven't they done anything for 900 years? But aside from that, interesting theory. It's difficult to say because we don't know much about them. The only ones we know are Imu and Lily. It's possible that the eyes on Imu's Hagoromo could be the eyes of the first 20, with the exception of Imu and Lily. Oh, yeah, they all lended Imu their power. That'd be crazy. You know, typically for black magic, right, they have rituals and sacrifices. What if they all sacrificed themselves so that Imu would get this powerful? Like, oh, Imu, we're trusting you with this mission. This is going to give you immortality. You'll have the lifespan of 19 kings and queens. Here you go, buddy. Beat Joy Boy for us. Oh, yeah. It could be like FMAB, where they have like that giant alchemic circle and they just give their life to the homunculi. It could be like that. That would be interesting. And that's why they're a black blob, because they're like an amalgamation of souls. Cooking. So now on to the very last poll. But now that Imu is in Elbaf, will he strengthen the God Knights? Dude, the God Knights have been quite pitiful. And I get it. You know, people like to play the middle road where it's like, well, I mean, they did kind of okay, right? You know, they did push Elbaf back a little bit. And I get that there's a middle road where people say, oh, but Sai, they did push back the Giants, right? They were about to win if the Strats weren't here. And it's like, that's cool and all, but even Sanji said it. He's like, are these really the Knights? You know, the fighting stopped right when it began. There's gotta be more. I want to believe that because Imu initially gave these guys the Mark of the Abyss, because Imu granted them their strength, he can grant them even more. And now that the real body is here, now that we see that they are the devil, I think that they could get buffed. Hell, they might even get Gorosei-esque transformations. Like maybe he goes to St. Somers and he's like, oh, I bestow upon you a new contract. You are now Quetzalcoatl. I don't know. I'll just pull that out of my ass. But yeah, you know, I think we could get Domi reversing versions of them. Maybe just devil transformations of them in general. I think they could have a second go around. So, as you can see, 73% believe that they will get buffed, while 27% believe that they will not get buffed, and everything they are right now is all they will ever be. So I think it goes without saying where I land on all of this, but I do think they will get buffed. I think they need it. And mainly, it's because they are Imu's weakness. As it stands, if a God Knight dies, Imu takes damage. I do not think he would leave Somers' heart in the hands of Zoro and Gerd. I do think he'll look at St. Somers, save him, and then buff him up so that he doesn't die. Or he sends him home. But I do believe in buffing up being like the most straightforward answer, right? So yeah, buff him up, buff Killingham up, and then we could finally get some good matchups between Zoro, Sanji, Killingham, and Somers. Because as it stands, Zoro hasn't even tried to master his advanced Conqueror's Haki here in Elbaf. Scopper Gavan said, hey, you have a leaky cock. Zoro has not done anything to fix that. Sanji had a conversation with Scopper Gavan about Conqueror's Haki, and guess what? He managed to beat Killingham alongside Jinbei and Frankie without using Conqueror's Haki, without even giving us the flashback about what Scopper said. There's gotta be more. You know, there's gotta be more so that we can level up. Without strong resistance, we will never grow. It goes back to this first poll, right? Like, what difficulty will Elbaf be for Imu? It's good if it's low diff or mid diff because we'll get stronger. And the same applies for the God Knights, in my opinion. This says, my God Knights struggle, my God Knights lose, my God Knights regen, my God Knights rage. Dude, they gotta get up. Come on, one more time, St. Somers, please! Sami, Killy, come on! Sami and Killy, cool nicknames. They'll get buffed. Imu will perform docking with the Holy Knights, attaching them to its arms, legs, and become Super Holy Saint. Imu kills Sommer. Ooh, that's a good name. Imu kills Sommer. That's pretty funny. Good reference to Thriller Bark. Thing is that I do wonder if Imu gets along with the God Knights. I could see it. You know, I think there does exist a world where Imu, Killingham, and Somers hang out for a little bit. Like, imagine if they had a strategy meeting, or, you know, Imu has a very similar moment to what Luffy had when it came to Brook and Usopp. Luffy saw that Brook and Usopp were beaten by Gunkmu, ran over and said, I'm angry now. And then, of course, he brought them to safety. Maybe Imu does the same thing. He looks at St. Somers and Killingham, and he says, what did you do to my friends? What did you do to my subjects? Maybe. And here's the thing too, right? Going back to the OG 20 kings and queens, these are their descendants. You know, Imu rolled around with the OG Saint Shepherd. Imu rolled around with the OG Saint Remo Shifu. Imu, would he really let his friends' great grandson get dealt with like this? I don't think so, man. I think Imu would actually say, hey, what are you doing to my boys, man? What are you doing to my crew? And the thing is that, Imu entrusted these guys, these goobers, with the mark of the abyss. He trusts them. Maybe he likes them. Maybe he wants to see them win. That would be fantastic. Like, imagine Imu comes in here like Luffy. Like, my Nakama. Leave them alone! Even if they get buffed, it won't matter. For when Barbell makes his inevitable entry to fight and one-tap the God Knights and Imu. Unironically, eventually, we'll have to see the man marked by flames. If they come to Elbaf and help us fight Imu, that would be kind of nuts. And I'm not saying it's Barbell. Yeah, I'm not saying it's Barbell. But if it's Barbell, that'd be kind of crazy. Or just like older pirates in general, right? Like imagine Vista showing up. Here comes Diamond Jozu. Oh, yeah, that would be, nothing, actually. I don't think that would really do too much, to be honest. Underestimate me while you still can, insects. Yeah. It's either that Killingham was just straight talking shit, or Killingham knew that there was a power-up coming. He knows that he needed Imu to level up one more time. I think that is obvious. Buffed Sommers and Killingham will be Zoro and Sanji's opponents this arc. I love it. This makes me so happy. I don't know why, but I never pulled this right here. I've been talking about the God Knights getting buffed for the longest time, and I thought I was crazy. I thought I was huffing copium, but here we have it. A majority of people actually believe that it's not done. This makes me happy. See, this is why I hold polls. God damn it, I'm not alone. I think so, because Frankie said they were too weak 2 chapters in a row, and Sanji was doubting them, so I think they will get a boost. Yeah, well, Frankie was calling them weak, but he was mainly calling himself and the Straw Hats strong. They go on and say because the Straw Hats, especially Frankie, need a humbling in order to motivate them to get stronger. Also, I think it would be interesting if Imu Domi reverses Gabon. Ooh, Domi reversing Gabon. Huh. Would it work? It should theoretically work, right? Of course, we don't know if the Homeland theory is correct or not. We still, funny enough, need to learn more about Domi Reversi, but that would be crazy. I hope they don't do it again. I don't know. I get it. Domi Reversi is such a good ability if you're a villain. If you're trying to min-max, yeah, Domi Reversi, you don't have to get your hands dirty. But at the same time, it's like, do we really want Domi Reversi Gabon? Yes, with the drums of rage and darkness. Ooh. Yeah, it could be similar to Emeth, right? Emeth gets fueled up by the drums of liberation. Maybe the drums of oppression and slavery really get to St. Somers, Gunko, and even Killingham. It's Imu's music that powers them up. It's not even Imu giving them a contract. It's not Domi Reversi. It's not turning up the scale. No. It's Imu's music. That would be really cool. I could see the buff purely just being Domi Reversi on the God Knights to give more of a reason for Domi Reversi to be significant up until now. The only problem with Domi Reversi is that Chopper is here. If Chopper is still just the direct counter, even if you Domi Reversi Sommers, Killingham, and Gunko, he should be able to theoretically deal with it very quickly. And for St. Sommers, Chopper is right next to him. Chopper is literally with Zoro on his head, ready to just slap him back to normalcy. So that's the one problem with Domi Reversi being the thing. So I would rather prefer a demonic contract. You could argue demonic contract, Domi Reversi, kind of the same thing, that's fair. But I think there might be like a slight nuance if you willingly accept it. Because, the Giants, they were forced into the contract, but maybe for the God Knights, if they accept it, it's a little bit different. Okay, 2 more comments and then we'll head out of here. We are for sure about to get a Holy Knight version of the, I cannot pronounce this. I know what you mean though. Yeah, this is the Quincy's Awakening. I hope it turns their fruits more demonic or nightmarish and changes their forms. I love this ability, by the way. I think Bleach does a really good job with second awakenings. The Soul Reapers have their Bankai, the Espada have their Resurrections, and then the Quincy's have their Volständiga. Yeah. I think that's it. And they were really crazy. In fact, I think a lot of the Quincy's call themselves godlike as well, which, fits the thematic of the Celestial Dragons seeing themselves as gods. Like St. Somers is like, oh, this is my god form. Killingham rises up, this is my god form. But of course, in reality, it is straight up demonic. I think he will buff them, but he might take the power if needed, and they are losing. Oh, like Saint Saturn. Yeah, so again, this is kind of what Bleach did with their final villain. The Bleach final villain is able to give powers and also take them away. And when he takes them away, he gets more powerful. It goes back to him. I don't know if Imu's powers work the same way. Like, does he have an infinite well? Will he actually get stronger with the less God Knights out on the field? We don't really know. I think that's a fine theory, though. Last one, there are two options. They get a buff, or Imu sends them home, and it's Imu versus everybody on Elbaf. And I really think it would be insane if we got Imu versus everyone, and he just wipes the floor with Elbaf. Could happen. Only problem with sending them back is that if Imu still wants to kidnap the kids, he does need Saint Sommer's Gunka or killing him to do that physically. So at the bare minimum, he needs one God Knight here, if that's still the plan. You know, we don't really know what's going through Imu's head. I kind of wish they had like more of an inner monologue, but it is what it is. That being said though, guys, let me know your thoughts on all of this down below. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end. I really freaking appreciate it, and I'll catch you guys next video. Peace out. Also, if you have a second, make sure to check out my side channels right over here. I got Syvduck, Syvduck. I also live stream over on Twitch under that same username. And I also have Boom 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 Somnus Reacts, where I'm reacting to the One Piece Elbaf anime, as well as ReZero this season. Peace out. Stay safe, guys.